we return to Ladies Can We Talk with host Debbie Georgatos on 660 AM The Answer.
Hello there. Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in so much. Thanks for tuning in. Ladies, Can We Talk? This is Debbie Georgatos, and joined in our studio by Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Hello, sir.
Good to be here with you, Debbie.
Glad you're here. And, you know, there are so many issues I want to jump in and talk with you about, including the debates, the GOP debate, and also including kind of where we are on the Iranian deal. But I wanted to start with, because Lieutenant Colonel West, I think all of you probably know, is a former member of Congress and a longtime Army, 22 years? 22 years. Yeah, and service to America, and actually served abroad in our in several, I'm sorry, you could say the names of the things you served in. Operation Desert
Shield, Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, and then after I retired, I went to Afghanistan as a civilian military advisor to the Afghan Army for 2.5 years.
So a true patriot, a true servant of America. And now we're just so lucky to have him here in Texas. He's in Dallas, and he's head of the NCPA, the National Center for Policy Analysis. And I do want to get to those big pressing national issues, but I want to take a moment to talk about NCPA, because I think when you came here in January, I think you may have brought some fresh ideas, some new directions. So tell us what you're up to at NCPA.
Well, the most important thing is a 32-year-old conservative free market think tank, health savings accounts, Roth IRAs, the individual contributions in the 401k were some of the policy initiatives that came out of NCPA. But what we want to do is make sure that we have a focus of being America's think tank, because we're not inside the Beltway. And we want to be able to get our message out, not just to other think tanks in the world of academia or to the people up on Capitol Hill, but we want to educate and inform the everyday American citizen so that they make better decisions when it comes to our electoral process. So right now, when you look at all of these different tax plans that are being thrown out there, we've done a lot of analysis on that through our Tax Analysis Center, the Lee Rubio tax plan, Rand Paul's tax plan, some other fiscal issues that we're looking at, as well as healthcare issues. We were out in front of the King versus Burwell case, and we continue to talk about alternatives, private sector alternatives to Obamacare. Energy security, one of the things, if you go to our website, www.ncpa.org, you will see the new fracking map, where we're tracking all of these different restrictions. Yes, Debbie Georgatos has it. All these different restrictions, because that affects our economic security and also our national security. The fact that we are restraining our oil, natural gas, and you just saw this past week, the new climate plan of the president, which is really just cap and trade by executive fiat. And then, of course, national security.
You know, I was going to say, in preparing for today's show, I went to NCPA's website, which I do periodically go. And honestly, you can just walk away so well informed and with relatively short articles. I mean, I know I used to read really long ones, and you may get a little bit lost in them, but there are articles. Today I just saw how online schools improve student achievement. Corporate welfare distorts free market forces. I love that one. Yep. Medicaid's poverty trap illustrated. I didn't know you had actually analyzed these current candidates or elected officials, their plans on the economy. So you've actually written up, I'm sorry, you said Rand?
Yeah, the Lee Rubio tax plan. We've looked at that, and also Rand Paul's tax plan. So you can go and see our analysis and assessment of those two plans.
I think that's fabulous. And one last thing I think you have a run coming up for Constitution Day?
Absolutely. Constitution Day is 17 September. The Sunday prior to that, 13 September, come out and join us at the University of Texas, Arlington at 7 p.m. You can go to the website and register and get more information on that. You'll get a T-shirt and a free Constitution, and we'll get an opportunity to do a nice little 5K fun run.
I love that. I will say, as our listeners and my friends who all know my activity in politics, think tanks are so important, because it's great to have big picture ideas and everyone on the liberty side knows what they are. But what does that mean in day-to-day life? And so NCPA does a beautiful job of spelling it out. And so you feel informed. And then when you listen to candidates, you can recognize whether what they're saying is really reasonable.
Is viable.
Or
not. Absolutely.
Yeah. So now I want to turn and I love that explanation. Anything else at NCPA coming up you want to share? Or?
Well, that's pretty much so it. If you'd like to join us on what we call our Chairman's Council, I will be up in Washington, D.C. We're going to get some visits from House and Senate key leaders on Monday, the 28th of September. And then on the 29th of September, I'm going to give a guided tour of the Gettysburg Battlefield. The two-day event is all about policy and leadership. So please go to our website. You can learn more about that. And go to our events page, because we have some really great things. And in December, yours truly, right across from me, Debbie Georgatos, Strategist will be hosting an incredible event with 3 of the top female mayors that are located right here in the state of Texas.
That will be fun. We're having fun planning it and thinking it through. And I love women leaders who are strong and successful and have some great insights on how to be about good government, good conservative government. Okay, I want to turn now and talk about this Iranian deal. And we were actually, I will tell you, talking about this a little bit before we came on the air tonight. I think it's a fabulous thing that Senator Schumer, the Democrat senator from New York, liberal guy, has come out against the Iranian deal. Now, is he a leader, do you think, among the Democrats in the Senate to start with? I don't know how well you know those folks over there, but is he likely to be a thought leader?
Well, Senator Schumer will be the next leader of the Senate Democrats because Harry Reid will be stepping down. But it is not just Senator Schumer. You also have Steve Israel, Representative Steve Israel, who is the head of the Democrat Congressional Committee. You have the ranking member of the House Foreign Relations Committee, Elliot Engel, and also the next ranking Democrat, Brad Sherman, Anita Lowry of New York, Representative Ming also. But the thing that I really want to understand, because I know how it works up there, chances are they've already done the whip count, the head count of where the votes will go. And remember, because of Senator Corcoran, what he put forth, the onus is extremely high on the House and Senate to hit 291 votes in the House, 67 votes in the Senate, in order to have to override the presidential veto. If the Democrats know that there is no threat to that veto, you will start to see certain individuals break camp because they can play both sides against themselves.
And because they may have a constituency that wants them to do it. So that
Big time in New York. I was up there for the Times Square rally, and they were really railing on Senator Schumer. And so for him to now come out against this, if Senator Gillibrand of New York has not come out against this, so it'll be interesting if he will put pressure on her.
Did she sign that letter that said we're taking a close look at this or something? I think she was one of the ones who didn't just jump on board the moment the president came back with the deal. So I don't know where she's leaning, but I just, this Iranian deal, and I'm quick for our listeners, we're speaking with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West about the Iranian deal that President Obama and others negotiated with Iran. There have been so many conservative leaders and also just Middle East experts who've warned that this deal that is the whole reason we had the negotiation was to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and many people are saying it's going to actually enable that.
You are enabling that, and what we have to come to understand, since this agreement has been signed, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, you have had Iran in conversations with Russia about purchasing new aerial refueling tankers. You have had Iran in conversation with China about buying new fighter jets in exchange for oil from Iran. We know that the head of the Quds Force, General Qasem Soleimani, who is supposed to be under a sanction and a travel ban, has already traveled to Russia and was talking with Vladimir Putin 5 days before John Kerry went before the Senate and the House to testify. Now, I can tell you, why is Soleimani, first of all, breaking a United Nations resolution coming from the Security Council? Russia is part of the Security Council. So you have all kinds of people thumbing their nose at the United States of America. And we still have 4 Americans being held hostage there. And the billions of dollars going to be opened up to Iran, unfrozen assets. That's not going to go to the quality of living or the standard of living of the Iranian citizen. That's going to go to Hamas. It's going to go to Hezbollah. It's going to go to the Houthis. It's going to go for the number one state sponsor of Islamic terrorism. So when the president comes out and makes this insidious remark of comparing people who are in opposition to this to Iranian hardliners and militant Islamists, that I have to ask, whose side is the president of the United States on when it comes to national security and foreign policy?
I think many people have asked exactly that question. This may be a good time to zip off to our break a little early because we're going to change subjects after we come back from the break. But we're discussing the Iranian deal with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and I have a feeling that some people who don't maybe tune into politics as often as I do, or some people do, might think this is just another partisan battle, and whatever the Democrats want, the Republicans don't. It's a big, ugly thing. But what we're discovering is it's not political. It's about America's security, and it's about the security of the Middle East and countries surrounding Iran.
And global security.
And global security and of Israel. So please come back after the break. We'll continue to talk with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. This is Debbie Georgatos, and Ladies Can We Talk on 660 AM, The Answer.
Of Ladies, Can We Talk with Debbie Georgatos, right here on 660 AM The Answer.
Hey there, welcome back, Ladies, Can We Talk? I'm so glad you've tuned in. And we're talking tonight with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, who's a friend of the show. He's been on before. And just prior to the break, we were talking about the Iranian deal. And I do want to switch to talking about the GOP debates. But I want to address one other thing we were talking about a minute ago, which is this. I think the reason a lot of Americans think, well, this couldn't be that bad a deal. It couldn't be as dangerous as Republicans say, as the Center for Security Policy says, as Alan West says, because if it were so bad, why would Obama negotiate it? I mean, he lives here. So do you have an answer? Why would he do a bad deal?
Well, I think that you have to talk to President Obama about that. I believe that the president is more so concerned about doing something that, quote unquote, no one else has done and having a display in his presidential library. This is what happens immediately. Iran becomes an economic power with the billions of dollars of unfrozen assets, the new markets that will be opened up between European countries and also the oil markets. In year 5, the UN weapons embargo on conventional weapons is lifted. In year 8, the ballistic missile embargo is lifted. In year 10, they can go back to full spending of centrifuges and enriching uranium. In year 15, they can build new nuclear reactors. I don't see how this benefits the United States of America whatsoever.
You know, the argument from the left has been, well, it may slow them down some, but, we didn't even try negotiating, as far as I read, even try negotiating. For example, why do they get to have intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs? Those are just, they are there to get the weapons over to us. I mean, they are there to hit America.
Absolutely. The mutually assured destruction theory does not work with a radical Islamic theocracy that you have in Iran.
Yeah. It's a little bit like negotiating with the kamikaze pilots because they don't care if they die.
No, they don't. And that's exactly. And their belief is rooted in their theocracy of an apocalyptic event that brings back the hidden imam, the Mahdi, so that they can have the restoration of a global Islamic caliphate. So how do you sit down with the irrational lot that they are? And again, I take them for their word. When they say death to America, death to Israel, I believe that that's what they truly believe.
That reminds me, there was a comment that a lot of people picked up on, but President Obama actually compared the leaders in Iran who've been chanting death to Israel, death to America, and all that, the opponents of this deal, and compared them to the Republicans in Congress who are questioning this deal, who have the right under the Corker deal to vote up or down. I mean, I shouldn't even have to ask, but is that the most outrageous thing you've ever heard?
There have been many other outrageous things, but I think this is part of the hubris. We have seen the left refer to Republicans as suicide bombers, having bombs strapped to their chests, and call them extremists and things of this nature. So they're using the same language that they refer to terrorists to anyone that is standing in opposition. So now the question is, because Senator Schumer and several other leading Democrats have come out against this deal, are they also like the Iranian hardliners? That's an interesting question.
That's a good question. One last question on this, and I want to turn to hear your thoughts about the debates. But just suppose there would be the case that, the Congress voted the deal down, President Obama vetoed it, and by some, answer to prayer, or the House and Senate actually had enough votes to override his veto. I had the thought, why would that change President Obama's conduct in any way? Is he really going to? I fear he just moved forward anyway with the deal.
Well, I think that what you will see happening, because he went to the United Nations and got the Security Council to unanimously endorse it, and the EU has also endorsed the agreement, we can institute sanctions on our own. We can increase those sanctions, but it's going to be almost like with South Africa and the apartheid government. Yeah. We're going to have to put pressure on other governments that are looking to do business with Iran as well.
Yeah. I read in fact, I think we talked about last week in the show, there's one French diplomat that said it is not true that if Congress votes this down, it's not true that we're just, everything falls apart. We could get a better deal. I don't know if you read about that. There's one French. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that we should. I think it would send an incredible message to Iran, is that we don't trust you. You've been absolutely more obtuse and more belligerent since this quote unquote deal was signed. And we need to let them know we're not suckers.
Man, I would love that. Just sure wish you were there in Congress, Lieutenant Colonel West. Okay, but changing subject entirely. This past week, we had the GOP debates, the Fox News debate in Cleveland, and there was a lot of a lot of controversy, I guess. I mean, there were two debates, as we mentioned earlier, and then after the debates, there was a conference in Atlanta, the Red State Conference, very big conference. It's called Red State, sponsored by Eric Erickson, and he, as a result of some of the conduct by Donald Trump, the front runner, uninvited Donald Trump to speak at Red State. And so I guess I want to start with, did you watch the debates? Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I watched the 5 o'clock and the 9 o'clock.
So what was your, I guess, overall impression about Fox? You think that they were fair? Were they too harsh? What was your impression about the way Fox handled them?
Well, look, if you are vying to be the president of the United States of America and you get upset over journalists asking you questions, I don't think you're ready to be in the room with Vladimir Putin, Hassan Rouhani, Xi Jinping, or deal with ISIS, Boko Haram, or any of the other global Islamic jihadist movements that are out there. So, I would expect a debate to be as rigorous as it was. Now, what I am going to look to see is when the Democrats have their debate, will the people in the mainstream liberal progressive media be as tough on the Democrat candidates like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders or whomever, as we saw the Fox correspondents were. So I want people to go through a crucible, because we're talking about a very important time for the history and the future of this nation. We have to make sure we have a tried and true and tested individual. So the questions that most of them got, they're going to get asked those questions when they come to a general election in front of the full media.
That's what I thought, too. In fact, I got to thinking about was reading all this criticism of Fox being too harsh. Was Fox is known as says it's fair and balanced, but it's known as a conservative news outlet. If they had just flung softballs all evening long and whatever someone said, just say, gee, that's so, thank you very much, Senator so-and-so. How about you, Governor? Yep. People thought, well, that's a waste of time.
Well, you know something, and I know you love this thing, and your other ladies here, a diamond. A diamond is nothing but a black rock until you put it through intense pressure and heat. Steel has to be purified through intense heat. You look at our special operators like Navy SEALs and Green Beret. Not everyone gets to be a Green Beret. Not everyone gets to be a Navy SEAL and wear that trident. Why? Because we take them through a crucible. We take them through a hardened test before we send them out there to do battle, or that beautiful thing that you wear around your neck. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm glad that Fox went in there and threw the tough questions, because you have to be able to challenge these individuals and get them to not believe that this is going to be the layup. This is not about every kid gets a trophy, folks. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
And so, we have to separate the wheat from the chaff.
So what did you think about Donald Trump's answer at the very first question in the second debate, where they said, if you don't win this nomination, do y'all promise you wouldn't go third party? And then raise your hand if you don't. He was the one to raise his hand.
We have a saying in the military that there is no I in team. And I think that that's a very important aspect that we all need to understand. If you are about the team, and I'm not talking about the GOP team, I'm talking about the American team. It is not about you. It is not about elevating yourself. It is not about people being nice to you and you getting your way. We already have that somewhat in 1600 Pennsylvania right now. This is about service, sacrifice, and commitment to this republic.
I agree. And, I have to say on Donald Trump, I could imagine someone I thought of as a really solid conservative answering that question by saying something like, I love this country. I'm in this race for this country, and if someone were to win this nomination, I truly feared would be in some way harmful, maybe I'd think about a third party run. But my sense in listening to Donald Trump is because, to me, the way it struck me, because the race is about him. It's an egotistical, if I can't have it. In fact, his answer was kind of like, well, I'll be loyal to the party as long as I get the nomination.
Well, and we've heard this a lot, as long as the party is nice to me and people are nice to me and so was not nice to me, this person is a loser. If I'm Vladimir Putin, I'm sitting back and looking at this, I'm saying, okay, here we go again. Someone that I will be able to take advantage of.
Walk all over.
Yeah, because, being a former KGB, he understands that aspect of psychological warfare and how you can get under someone's skin very easily. And I think that you have seen him do that. Case in point, on the 4th of July, when he called President Obama to wish him a happy Independence Day. And it was the same time Russian jets were flying right off the coast of the United States of America.
I missed that story.
Oh, it's out there.
Wow, I hardly missed any stories. That's amazing. So
that's why you have me around.
That's right. That's right. Well, I also thought in the first debate at 5:00, I had originally wished, and I did think that in part the second debate suffered from simply having 10 people in 2 hours. That's a problem by itself. The earlier debate, people had a little more time.
It was more substantive.
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah. And, Carly Fiorina's been on the show a few times, and I thought she just really stepped up, and I thought she just did a fabulous job in sounding strong and confident. And
she absolutely crushed it. And if you looked at her interviews that have been subsequent to that, I mean, the one against Chris Matthews, I mean, Mr. Hardball, got whiffed out, like he was playing whiff ball, T-ball. He was speechless. If you looked at her on the Sunday shows, I mean, very strong, very resolute, very sharp, very competent. So without a doubt, someone had to be the breakout candidate from that 5:00 debate, and she was. And I think that you will end up seeing her maybe in the top 5 or 6 as we go forth.
I do too. I did see there was a poll just after the debate, I think the next day or so, and still Donald Trump was in first place, but he was down quite a bit. They had Senator Cruz in second place, and I don't have it in front of me, or it's someplace in my piles I can't find quickly, but I believe Carly Fiorina was 4th or 5th. She was much higher up. She was 4th. Okay, Lori Sigley, she was 4th. So I think people, it's interesting. I said earlier at the start of the show, it's so important to watch these debates and to really understand these people and picture them when they get the famous call at 3 a.m. and X has happened, and what do we do? Do we send in troops? How are we going to solve this? You need that kind of decisive leadership and strength and executive responsibility.
One of the great quotes of Plato was that, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. He said, one of the penalties for not participating in politics is that you will be governed by your inferiors. So I believe that more Americans are realizing that government is having too much of an intrusive and invasive nature into their everyday lives. You're having more conversations at the kitchen tables and in the living rooms. My 2 daughters, 22 and 18, sat and watched every single minute of both of those debates.
That's great.
And, driving back from Nacogdoches, I mean, we had some really good conversations because they're realizing this is about their future. Too many young people graduating from college and they don't have opportunities. They can be dependent. They can have the government absolve and remove their college student debt loan, but they realize that someone has to pay for that. So I think this is a very crucial point for the evolution of our republic.
I really do too. I think those debates were, I think people were ahead of time kind of thinking, well, gee, there's no heir apparent, so everybody and their brother's jumping in, and maybe my barber's going to jump in next week. But the more I thought about it, I had 2 other observations. One was, I think that a lot of people are so concerned about the direction for America. I think a lot of the 17, or at least some of them, are really in for exactly the right reasons. They just want to get America back on track. And you heard in many of the statements they made this love of America, something you never hear from this administration, the current administration. Love of America, promise of America. I know we can get back on track. I found that very heartening.
No, it's incredibly heartening. And when as you said, you look at those 17, any one of them is more than capable as opposed to really what you have coming up on the other side. But understand this, don't discount the fact that, the Vice President, Joe Biden, could jump into this race, sometime within the month, because their first debate on the Democrat side is not toward the end of October.
Yeah, I understand he's on vacation this week trying to ponder it all. And it's funny because I have one of my best friends from law school who's a lovely person, and I don't know why she's such a liberal Democrat, but she's otherwise lovely. But she has actually said several times, I don't know why you guys make fun of Joe Biden. We really like him. I mean, you're just kind of amazed.
He's the likable guy, and I think that is what is really causing some consternation on the side of the Democrats, because Hillary Clinton does not have that likability of Bill Clinton, and that is so important when you have to run on pure emotion and not on policy, not on solutions, not on your principles and philosophy of governance, which we have seen over the past 6.5 years are failing. 2.3% GDP growth, that should not be the new normal. Ronald Reagan had us clipping at 7 to 8% GDP growth at this time in his administration.
Amen to that. Well, we're talking with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and he's just a fount of knowledge and inspiration and patriotism. So I thank you so much for coming in tonight.
My pleasure.
And we're going to zip off to our break, so we have a small amount of time before the top of the hour. But please stay tuned on our short break, and we'll come back in the second hour with Lori Medina and Mari Sullivan. And we'll come back in just a few minutes for the final segment of this first hour. This is Debbie Georgatos and Ladies Can We Talk on 660 AM, The Answer.